Sadly, this is the first spring in the last century in which most high schools will not be able to hold their proms. At the time I am making this video, the COVID-19 pandemic is ravaging the United States, and most high schools are closed and definitely not having their proms. It's sad because there's a whole, cohort of students who will not get to have a prom. Shadyside High, like most American high schools, does hold a prom every spring. And it is usually a fun night of dancing and romance, and a highlight for many in their high school careers. Your mileage may vary, of course. But in the strange history of Shadyside, prom has actually ended lives on more than one occasion in history. And not because of a pandemic or some kind of illness, but because of murder. You see, I began my investigation into Shadyside when I was approached by the Yamura family to investigate Phoebe Yamura's death. 20 years ago, Phoebe happily attended her senior prom in the last month of her life, and I plan on doing another video about the circumstances of Phoebe's death. But today I would like to focus on another unsolved mystery of Shadyside, the prom night slaying of Gary Fresno. So let's talk about it. On the evening of May 6th, 2000, shortly after the Shadyside High senior prom let out for the night, Gary Fresno was stabbed in the stomach and bled to death in the arms of his girlfriend Trisha Conrad after getting in an altercation at a liquor store. Devastatingly, this murder remains unsolved and the killer is still at large 20 years later. The Shadyside High School class of 2000 has a peculiar number of casualties, even for Shadyside. But could Phoebe's killer be a serial killer? Phoebe Yamura was murdered the same month that Gary Fresno was murdered, and both are unsolved mysteries. While I have found no direct evidence that linked the two deaths, it is curious that they both died the same month and that their killers are still at large. We actually have more clues into the identity of Gary's killer than we do Phoebe's. One of the students brought a prom date, you see, that night to Shadyside High, by the name of Duke Carpenter. This student believed Duke went to the private school St. Ignatius in the neighboring town of Waynesbridge, but she didn't actually know him very well. I actually, during my research, went to St. Ignatius and took a look at their records, and I could find no record of anyone by the name of Duke Carpenter being a student there at any time in history. But anyways, that night he got into fights with a few Shadyside students at the prom, and then afterwards with Gary Fresno at the liquor store. It seemed to have been a crime of passion. Perhaps Duke was a drunken teen with too much testosterone. I am not sure, but the strangest thing about it is that no one, and I mean no one, has seen nor heard from Duke Carpenter since May 6, 2000. It's almost as if he never existed. I'm not sure how this is possible, but he murdered poor Gary Fresno and disappeared into the night and has not been seen since, or heard from. We don't know if Duke Carpenter was his real name. He certainly didn't seem to be an actual student at St. Ignatius, and if that was his real name, where has he been for 20 years? I'm really hoping to uncover some answers in my research and find out if any of this has to do with Phoebe Yamura. So please stay tuned